this is the HP acquires everybody part. So Will, why don't you kick this one off?
Thanks, Pat. Yeah, I think it's more than 3 companies. I think I read an email from the team there, over 6 acquisitions over the last several months. So I'm going to talk about 2. The first one is Athonet. And so at Mobile World Congress, and I wrote about this in my Forbes write-up, I had a chance to meet with the CFO, also head of strategy at HPE, and we talked about this acquisition. And what's really unique from my perspective is that HPE, they've had a very mature telco business unit. They've been doing a lot with OSS and BSS, orchestration, the software layer, automation. They're driving a lot in Open RAN. Where they were deficient was having a core element to that to put with the RAN. And so with Athonet, that acquisition shores that up, gives them the ability to have a core, leverage that, and compete with the likes of, for example, Cisco that has a private 5G as a service. So I think from my perspective, a very, very smart move. When I spent time with the CFO, he talked about how they're going to leverage this into private networking and really provide an extension of what they're already doing with their Aruba footprint within the enterprise. But I know that you got the news as well. What are your thoughts about this?
I mean, listen, it was the talk, part of the talk of the show. There were a few talks at Mobile World Congress, and this was definitely one. And I think, in kind of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, maybe with some of their competitors, I think they were like, I think I should have bought this. I should have, I should have snagged this. But, listen, doing tuck-in acquisitions is one thing. Turning them into, gigantic money makers is another. Right. HP's done a great job with Aruba, and maybe, we can say right now that that merging it in is complete. In fact, does the Aruba name still exist, Will?
It does. So there's been some repositioning of the marketing. It's Aruba Networking now. Aruba, as you mentioned, acquired over a decade ago, and after the founders, Kurtzi and Parth, the CEO and CTO, departed, they've kind of folded that that division into the HPE mothership, and so now it's Aruba Networking is the brand. Long way to answer your question.
No. This is good. I know you're a lot closer to it than I am. So let's talk Axis. What is this all about?
Yeah. So Axis Security. This was announced right at the beginning of March, and from my perspective, it's a great acquisition. So what Axis does is secure security edge (SSE). It's becoming a vital part of any SD-WAN or SASE offering. You could argue that Aruba, they've been a leader with respect to SD-WAN and SASE. I hate quoting the Gartner term SASE, but it is what it is. But at the end of the day, from my perspective, the SSE functionality really shores up some gaps that they had, so they can deliver a complete solution and do that via the cloud as well. So again, from my perspective, a very precise and targeted acquisition that really addresses some roadmap gaps. And, this is a great example of how a lot of companies, if they don't want to spend a year to 2 years in organic roadmap development effort, you go acquire a company that's been doing it for a year, plug them in. There's some integration work that has to go along with that, but it gets them up to par. So that's my quick take on it.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I have absolutely no comment on this one. No game. What about you, Paul or Matt? You got anything on this one?
I find it, HPE is really interesting to me from a security perspective because it's, when you think of like security players in the market, you think of Cisco, you think of, and on the true, you think of the Palo Altos of the world, but HPE has quietly built a really strong security portfolio. So, you look at it, Will, from the perspective of like Aruba and some of the acquisitions they've made. On the compute side, I look at how they've hardened their servers and how they've acquired technologies that go up the app stack to provide kind of gap-free security. I'm kind of curious how they're going to take all of this as a security portfolio and integrate it into one fully managed service. They have all the parts. It's going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So let's move into this next one. I'm going to call my own number, and that's a company called OpsRamp. And OpsRamp is a company that is an amalgamation of many different functions when it comes to the data center. It monitors, it does observability, automates, and manages IT infrastructure. So this was a missing piece that I had thought for a while. I mean, you could partner with Ansible on automation. You could partner with Splunk, Dynatrace on observability. But this is one of the few companies that amalgamates all of these into one. And it's clear to me that HPE is giving its customers a choice, which is, do you want to go with, quote unquote, category killer, best of breed, or do you want to go with a more holistic, integrated offering? And at some point, integration becomes the key, right? Like we're seeing in security, where IT is sick of integrating multiple packages, even though they could have 75 different security packages that are quote unquote best in breed. But the problem is they're typically too off of the latest rev because they're spending most of their time doing the integration. That's right. So the value prop with HPE right now is that you can get it one-stop shop. It's integrated across core infrastructure that's not only on-prem but also on-prem as a service. You can manage data. It's networking all the way from the core, a little bit in the core, but definitely to the edge. My final thought on this is that I like this because my premise about the future of the cloud, and again, this isn't bombshell, but it's hybrid multi-cloud. And the way that different enterprises are going to jockey around that is to have different types of fabric, okay? And whether that's an application fabric, let's call it, containers that they can do on-prem, or 80 different versions in the public clouds, including sovereign cloud. There's going to be data mesh. There's going to be data fabric. And I could see this ITOM fabric where HPE can make money not only on-prem or on-prem as a service with GreenLake, but also make money if their customers go to the public cloud. And it's something I've given Cisco a ton of credit for, which is, regardless of what modality or where you're doing your IT, we are going to make money off of that. Yeah. Cisco, for example, security, observability, and networking that you can take across the hybrid cloud.
And by the way, Pat, integrate those features into the stack and create new revenue opportunities as well. That's what Cisco's been doing with Thousand Eyes. And I think your point on observability is spot on. That was a weakness that HPE had. Cisco addressed that with its acquisition, nearly $1 billion of Thousand Eyes a few years ago. They've been and they've been integrating Thousand Eyes into the overall stack. I learned at Cisco Live EMEA some new use cases and some new monetization opportunities that Cisco's driving. So from my perspective, this is a great acquisition for HPE because it addresses that gap that they had in observability. But I'm sure Matt's got some thoughts here too.
I always have thoughts. Well,
by the way, we don't all have to have thoughts.
But I do on this one.
If you have a thought, bring it.
I'm an old manageability guy from way back, right? And I remember, pre-HPE when Compaq had their own management capabilities. And, the whole promise of AI ops, every OEM is talking about it. But here's what I find interesting about what HPE is doing. Every OEM talks about it in terms of how they're going to manage their infrastructure. With OpsRamp, this is a multi-vendor observability, multi-vendor operations management capability, right? There is no favored child, so to speak. Yeah. And this is where I think HPE can really differentiate it, because it doesn't just span multi-cloud; it spans everything that's on your network. It's such a cool story.
Well, this definitely is different. I mean, Dell partners, and so does Lenovo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really Cisco and an HPE game here. And I think the key differences that I see is that, HPE has built, heck, they built their own Kubernetes offering, right? All the way at the base, moving up to HPE. Cisco's gotten a little bit away from compute. So I think HPE is carving out some ground, but with all of this software from HPE, they really have to make the sale that we're going to be good at this.
Yeah.
And HPE over the last decade has had some varying levels of degree of success with software. But I am impressed. I mean, listen, I came in probably 5 or 6 years ago a doubter, because if you remember, some of the big software acquisitions ended up being an absolute nightmare for them, and then they jettisoned pretty much all of them. But I've been impressed with the way that they have been able to do this and their ability to convert that to revenue and cash.